Lukáš Dostál is finally signed. No arbitration needed. Find out what the contract looks like on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everydayer. Thanks for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Kyle Carr. I'm a lifelong Anaheim Ducks fan, and I've spent multiple years covering collegiate sports, including college hockey. But as always on Locked On, we're talking about the Anaheim Ducks today. And boy, do we got some news to get into. Yesterday, the number one goaltender of the Anaheim Ducks finally signed for the next 5 years. Lukáš Dostál, he has been signed. Today, I'm going to be discussing Dostál's career so far in the NHL and AHL and diving into how his journey through life and youth sports got him into the NHL. But first, we got to look at the deal and just kind of what that means for Anaheim and where they will be moving forward. So Lukáš Dostál announced his signing himself on social media with a little, "Hey, Ducks fans, guess what? I'm hanging out for another 5 years, so you better get used to me." He didn't say that, but he did say, "Hey, guys, I'm here for another 5 years in Anaheim." And then finally, all the news articles broke out and with all the information about the contract and whatnot. And if you haven't seen those, that's what I'm here for. So don't fret. This contract right now is a 5-year deal, and it has an AAV of $6.5 million. So not a bad cash out for Dostál in the next 5 years. Dostál had filed for salary arbitration before the deadline, and so there was a little contention there. Not sure if it was going to go to that, but because that they finally came to a deal, there will not have to be an arbitration hearing, which overall is very, very good for both the player and the team, because whenever those salary arbitration meetings do occur, they end up being a pretty not fun time. They tend to get a little rough, as the things that need to be brought up in those hearings, usually it drives a wedge between the player and the team. It gets a little nasty in there. I've heard sometimes they'll bring up players' eating habits, players' preparation, like the littlest tiny things about how the player is. They try to nitpick so they can get the lowest financial deal possible, but no worries here for that, as they do not have the hearing and the deal is finally signed. So absolutely great for both Lukáš Dostál and Anaheim, as Dostál is like the sweetest person ever and such a nice guy. I would hate to have to see him go through that process, and I don't even know if the Ducks would have anything negative to say about him. Like maybe one day he showed up and forgot to brush his teeth or something. I don't know that, but I'm glad that whole process is not actually happening. Looking at the quotes and everything that came out after the signing, though, he stated, Dostál stated that he had a lot of faith in the young core and definitely thinks it's an exciting time to be a Ducks fan, and especially in the near future, as things are coming along with this new coaching staff, the new look offense. There's a lot of just good things coming together for this team, and it seems like Dostál is absolutely bought in and looks forward to being an Anaheim Duck for the next couple of years, which absolutely very, very excited about. And the good thing about this deal is it does take him to the 2029 2030 season, and he will be a UFA after that contract is done. And the contract does not include any performance or salary type like signing bonuses, no performance bonuses. So just a flat $6.5 million. And as of now, Dostál does enter his UFA years in the 2028 season. But because he is signed into that, it's considered being in the UFA year contract. But the contract does include a modified no move clause for Dostál. Looks like it's a 10-team list for Dostál. So, or it's a no trade clause, I should say. So, modified no trade clause, 10 teams on the list. I have not seen what 10 teams those are yet, but I don't see the Ducks needing to try to get him to waive that in 5 years, or especially by the 27-28 season. With the plans of where Verbeek sees this team and management sees this team being, I doubt they're going to want to get rid of their number one goaltender, as they're just about to be making some playoff pushes. So don't expect that to really come into play, but it is there for future consideration. So 10 teams that Dostál does not want to get traded to. I'm pretty intrigued on what teams those would be. But looking back at some of the quotes that came after that, not only does Dostál have faith in this team and he thinks it's an exciting time to be a Ducks fan, but Pat Verbeek came out. He stated that Dostál has proven himself to be a number one goaltender and believes he is just now entering his prime and his best hockey is ahead. So good things to hear from the GM. Very intrigued as to what those negotiations look like after the salary arbitration was entered. Yeah, they don't go to the trial, but from hearing the back and forth from Verbeek, it never sounded like it got negative. And from what I'm getting out of Dostál, I don't think it was ever they weren't completely opposite of each other. Maybe it was an issue with term. Not sure if maybe Dostál's looking more for like 7 million. I don't know exactly what the negotiations were and what the back and forth was there and kind of why it took to this point. It seems like a pretty fair contract for both the player and the team. So would be intrigued to see what comes out of that. But both player and team seems to be satisfied. I think that it's honestly a good look for the Ducks. Not a massive cap hit, and especially with the cap going up and how much cap space the team has, that's going to be a massive deal by the time we get into that 28, 29 kind of time frame. I think 6.5, that's going to be for what Dostál looks like he's going to be with his projected numbers. That's going to be an absolute steal for Anaheim. So good for Dostál now to be locked in at that price point, and good for the team to have him for that long. Absolutely balanced. And then the last thing that I want to get into before we move on to the next segment, Dostál had this quote that I think is really, really cool to hear. And you can just kind of sense the humbleness that Dostál has in himself. But this is a direct quote from him. He says, "It's a big honor. I always look at myself in the mirror and always see myself being a kid from a village that has 300 people in it. It's always a good reminder that if you have a dream and you want to chase it, there's always a possibility to reach it. For me, it's a big milestone. All the work that has happened, this is kind of the reward, but there's a long way ahead of us." So obviously he's looking for the future. He's very happy and respected and just humble about getting this opportunity. He's very grateful, but knows there's still work to be done. And especially as a team to have the success that they're looking for to get into the playoffs and go the distance, he knows it's time to lock in and get to work. So after the break, let's take a look at the journey that Dostál took to get to the NHL and why it's going to pay dividends for the Ducks here in the short and the long run. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And with Monarch Money, looking at type of investments you're trying to make, you're trying to save up for a car, trying to save up for a vacation, all of it's right there, easy to read, color coded, the most simple command center you could possibly have for your finances. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. And getting back into it, let's take a look at Dostal's past. As you saw before the break, Dostal mentioned being from a small village of 300 people, which to me, I thought I was from a small town. I had a high school of 250 kids. So his entire village only had 50 more people than my school. That is just wild. And now he's out in Orange County, California. So, how did Dostal find himself playing in the NHL? Well, Dostal's journey to get to the NHL is one of what I think pure character and just determination. He stepped in to help his local team, and through hard work, he's proved himself time and time again to be a top goaltender, not only in this league, but internationally as well. Dostal was born on June 22nd, 2000 in Brno, Czech Republic, just a couple of months after my sister. And he was then raised in the village of Bedrichovic. Sorry if I said that completely wrong, but it's spelled Bedrichovice, and some of those vowels have little accents over it. And I am not a fluent speaker of Czech, so I apologize to you now. he he started to play hockey at the age of 6 as a skater, but then his local team was out a goaltender a couple years later, and he decided to take the opportunity and stepped into the net to make sure his team had a goaltender and could keep playing. So right there, bam, character is showing. He volunteers, steps into the net, and pretty much never looked back after that. In 2012, he signed up with HC Cometa Brno, and he played with them for their youth program for his 16U all the way to his 20U seasons. And then he first broke into the professional scene. I'm putting air quotes out there for those just listening. In 2017 with SK Horaka Slavia Trebik of the Chance Liga as part of their second tier team. So he's playing out there in the second tier team, ends up proving himself pretty well. And by the time the 2018 entry level draft comes around, Dostal's ranked the number 1 European goaltender. That's right, the number 1 European goaltender in the draft class. And that's why Anaheim selected him in the 3rd round, 85th overall. Welcome to the big leagues, Dostal. But before he actually makes his way into the Anaheim system and part of the franchise, he does spend the 2018-2019 season out in a couple of teams in Europe. He bounced around, but most of his play time was with the Ilves Tampere in the SM Liga. So that's Ilves, Ilves, Tampere in the SM Liga. He then played for Ilves during the 2019-2020 season and part of the 2021 season before going over to the San Diego Gulls. During the 18-19 season, he played 10 games, had a goals against average of 1.8 and a save percentage of .920. absolute Dost Wall has been around since the beginning of time. He has always been a outstanding performer at the level that he is playing at. A 1.8 goals against average and a 920 save percentage, just setting the bar high for himself. In the 1920 season, he played 43 games and had a goals against average of 1.78 and a save percentage of 0.928, and was named the Liga's goaltender of the year. And that was only the second player for Ilves. My goodness, all these European names. Ilves, he was the only second Ilves goaltender to do so. That word is going to catch me up all day. So just completely dominating as a goaltender in the Liga out there in Europe. And the 11 games he played before heading to San Diego in the 2021 season, he had a goals against average of 1.64 and a save percentage of 0.941 with a record of 10-1-0. Dostal, my man, this guy is a machine. And one thing to take a note, though, before moving into kind of his time in North America, the Liga, those rinks, and he did play for a champion hockey league team as well, but the ice out there is the Olympic ice. So that's the wider, longer ice. If you are local to Orange County and you've been to Anaheim Ice or the Great Park Ice, rink 2 at Great Park, that's Olympic size. So that's the size that they play on, or the Olympic ice over at Anaheim, just to give you an idea of the type of ice that he's playing on. So once he does move over to San Diego, he's got to completely adjust his uh, basically his lanes, his reads, and get used to that smaller ice. I've heard sometimes it can be a little bit difficult for goaltenders from Europe to kind of transition into that because it is a little tighter and you're like where the dots would be, you're thinking you have, a certain angle to cover where because it's smaller, it's actually a different angle. So a little bit of adjustment has to happen. But as we will see later, Dostal makes that adjustment flawlessly. Absolutely no issue for him. So moving on from his 941 save percentage out in Europe, on May 14th, 2019, Dostal signs his 3-year entry-level contract with Anaheim. But as we saw, he did end up going back out and playing for Europe, or for the Ilves. On November 25th, 2020, the Ducks exercised their playing rights on Dostal and brought him to San Diego. Thus begins the career for Dostal in the Anaheim Ducks organization. And the body of work that Dostal had to bring him into the NHL was quite impressive. You saw a couple accolades of being the goaltender of the year. I don't think he ever cracked a higher than 2 goals per game average while out in Europe. So, yes, the skill level is not the AHL, it's not the NHL, but still to not have a goals against average break the 2 goal mark and was constantly above a 920 save percentage. He was definitely someone the Ducks were ready to get their teeth in and bring him into the organization. So you can see that determination from basically sacrificing himself. I hate saying that because goaltenders are their own breed. Like, obviously, he wanted to do it. I know how many kids want to be goaltenders, but he decides to step into the net for his local team and then ends up having this success. So clearly a hard worker, lots of determination, lots of focus. And now after the break, let's look at how that focus and determination panned out in the AHL, the NHL, look at his career and some accolades that he's had since becoming an Anaheim Duck / San Diego Goal. So we'll get into that after the break. And my goodness, there's so much this guy has done that I even forgot about. So stay tuned. Lots of stuff to get ahead into. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop, as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. Look, are you tired of endless scrolling to find the best deal? Me too. The Game Time Zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. I got to go and see Katy Perry at the Honda Center and jam out to the firework that she puts on for a show, and it's all because of Game Time. So make sure you get out there, check out Game Time for whatever concert you're trying to see. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So before the break, the tale of Dostal had just gotten him to getting called up to the Ducks organization. So Dostal would finish that 2021 season in San Diego playing 24 games, and he had a 2.87 goals against average and a save percentage of 0.916. Not bad coming in over from Europe, stepping into that smaller ice. During that year, Dostal was 20 years old. He won his first 3 starts, being the youngest goaltender in franchise history to do so, beating out John Gibson, who had previously done it at 22 years old. So already coming in and breaking John Gibson's records. And, well, we've seen how it's been since then, but here's just how well he has done since coming in. During the 21-22 season, Dostal mostly played for the Gulls, but he did get called up for a bit and eventually got a start against the Red Wings. He was kind of part of the Anaheim Ducks. They call it the taxi squad. So he's traveling with the team. He's kind of there. At that time, Anthony Stolarz was more the rookie that Anaheim was kind of putting energy into, at least at the NHL level. He was backing up Gibson, and Gibson was being Gibson, playing extremely well. It's kind of when the injuries started to come around, but eventually Stolarz got hurt, and so Dostal comes, gets his start against the Red Wings, and he ended up making 33 saves, and the Ducks get the win in overtime, making Dostal the first Ducks goaltender to win his NHL debut since Kevin Boyle did it in 2019. So it seems like everywhere that Dostal goes, he's setting a record or breaking a franchise record or just being the guy. And he absolutely earned the nickname Dost Wall fairly quickly when it came to playing in the San Diego and Anaheim clubs. He'll also set a franchise rookie record for most saves in their NHL debut, and he became the 5th Ducks goaltender to make their debut at age 21 or younger. He then went back to the Gulls and posted his first shutout against the Henderson Silver Knights, which made him the youngest Gulls goaltender to post a shutout. He finished that year in the AHL tied for second among rookies with the 2.60 goals against average, and he was third amongst rookies with a 0.916 save percentage. Setting the bar. Talk about it. Dostal then represented his home country of Czechia at the IIHF World Championship, where he helped backstop the team to a bronze medal. comes back 22-23 season. Dostál started the season with the goals again. He did participate in the Ducks training camp, but goes back down to the goals, and he would eventually come up and down to the Ducks, kind of back and forth. He ended up playing in 19 games for Anaheim, and he became the first Ducks rookie goaltender to have multiple 40 save appearances. He made 40 saves against Calgary that year, and then 46 saves against Edmonton, which put him second of all time amongst Ducks rookie goaltenders behind Freddie Anderson. So just comes in and just inserts himself in Ducks lore, Ducks history. Like, hey, I'm the guy. Here I am. Lukáš Dostál. We call me the Dostwall, and I'm going to set a lot of records for you, so you better embrace yourselves. So Stolarz ended up taking back the backup position once he came back from injury behind John Gibson. So Dostál went back down to San Diego. That year, Dostál played 34 games for the Gulls and had a 2.97 goals against average and a .912 save percentage. There's a lot of stuff that happened that year. They went back and forward. They had he set a bunch of records and was the top goaltender during the postseason in the AHL. Unfortunately, the Gulls didn't advance, but he had a save percentage of .935. He was backstopping the goals like crazy in the playoffs. Just sets up standard after standard after standard. It seems like he was dominant down there, and it was unfortunate that he couldn't got more playoff action, but there's so much that this guy has done, especially for the Gulls and for the Ducks. Moving into the 23-24 season, Dostál becomes the official backup of John Gibson, and he even set a franchise record of 55 saves against the Maple Leafs. Unfortunately, the Anaheim Ducks did not come up with the win. The score was 2-1. And then he ends up I don't know if it was the next game, but it was a couple games later. He sets a franchise record number of saves during a win with 52 against the New Jersey Devils. It's not very far in the past. I know you know the pain. I know the pain. That was a tough time to be a Ducks fan, and I can only imagine an even more tough time being a Ducks goaltender, and not only a Ducks goaltender, but basically a rookie goaltender coming in, getting lit up. 55 saves, 52 saves. There were so many games that were 30 plus saves for him and for Gibson that year. Not a fun time. That year, Dostál played 44 games, had a 3.33 goals against average and a .902 save percentage. I'm pretty sure he had the record for rookie goaltenders with saves and shots against that year. So dude was getting lit up. Welcome to the league. Welcome to the suck. Save some goals, please. And he did. He did. With how many goals, how many shots he was seeing, a 3.33 was not bad at all. Then during the offseason, Dostál represents Czechia again in the IIHF World Championship, where he ends up backstopping Czechia to a gold medal. That's right, gold medal. Dostál is a gold medal player. He started all but 2 games and had a 1.58 goals against average. He recorded 2 shutouts during the playoffs part, not just during the round robin, during the playoffs. He had 2 shutouts. The first, unfortunately for us Americans, came against the U.S. in the quarterfinals. He blanketed him. And then the second was during the gold medal game against Sweden. So an absolute outstanding performance for Lukáš Dostál in international play. I'm sure you can see he does really, really well on that Olympic ice. So this guy is going to be someone to watch during the Olympics. I am so stoked to watch him play. Now that Dostál is locked in with his new contract, it's going to be exciting to see. And I know he's just going to have that much more confidence. But last year, everyone's I'm sure you remember how that season went. Gibson basically being way more injured than expected, ends up giving pretty much the net over to Dostál. Dostál plays 54 games, had a 3.1 goals against average and a save percentage of .903. He was up, I think he was in the top 8, at least the top 10 for most of the year. He was top 8 after Gibson was out due to injury. He was up there at like a 911, 912 save percentage for a bit, dropped down to about a 910. And then that end of the year, I mean, with all the work he was doing, I'm sure it just kind of wears in on you. And it fell a little bit, and that's where that kind of 903 ended up being. But he was performing the entire year, playing really well. And now he knows that he's going to be the number one goaltender. He knows he's locked in. He knows he's the guy. And it's going to be outstanding to watch. I truly believe that Dostal has every capability to become a Vezina Trophy winner. All the signs are there. His work ethic, his character, being the locked in number one goaltender now at such a young age. He's entering his prime. He does extremely well in international play. He's got faith in this team. I am very, very excited to see how things go. And now that he is completely knows he is the guy, he's that one, I think he's going to lock in, start putting in that much more work. And we're going to see some big things in Anaheim. And with this new coaching staff, the sky is really the limit for him. So expect him to be skyrocketing as a top goaltender in the NHL. It's going to be wonderful. There's going to be singing praises of Lukáš Dostál in the future. He's going to be the guy. And it's just, we're honestly, as Ducks fans, we are extremely lucky that we get to watch this guy for the next 5 years. He said it. I'm saying it. So make sure you tune into every single game you can, because you're going to be amazed. But that is the story of Lukáš Dostál thus far. Cannot wait to talk more and more about this guy and tell my grandkids that I remember the time that Dostal did this and that Dostal set this record and did that and did this. It's going to be good. But thank you guys so much for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason for them, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you go like and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube as well. And as always, I'm Kyle Carr. Be good out there.